Greetings, listeners, and welcome to The Spiritual Experience, a show where we share stories of life, love, and redemption for all of humanity on Earth. So sit back and enjoy. Try to identify with the speakers and not compare. Don't forget to subscribe on all podcast platforms. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and here we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Spiritual Experience. I hope you guys are keeping all your marbles shiny. Either way, please don't forget to like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm going to take a sip of water, relax. Anyway, we got a super special guest today, somebody that me and my whole crew, we've admired for a long time. We always said that, dude, when we grow up, because we got clean, we want to be this guy, you know, because he was the coolest grown-up that we ever met, like ever. And I'm excited to hear his journey. So everybody say hello to Hot Rod Eddie. Eddie, say hello.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
All right, great. So Eddie, where are you from?
Actually, originally I was born in Passaic, New Jersey, which is, you know, not too far from Manhattan. I lived in a big suburb, a little about 20 miles further west of that.
Right.
And that's kind of where I grew up. I have to say I grew up there because, you know, that was where, you know, the teen years were, and then, you know, mostly the single-digit years. Yeah, it's really not for me, that place.
Passaic, that's like in between like Garfield and Patterson area, like that whole area over there, right?
Yeah, my projects were in Garfield.
Really?
Yeah.
That's where my goddaughter lives, right there on Maple Avenue or something. Yeah, there's a lot of Polish people out there now too.
We had Guinea Heights and Pollock Valley. Garfield.
So
no disrespect, but
no, of course, that's just what it was. Listen, it's still like that out there.
Yeah,
you know, it's super blue collar, super.
Still, huh?
100%, 100%. So when did you make it into the city?
Living here in the mid-'90s, and I did what I know now to be geographics from there.
All right. So talk to me about that. What was going on? You were partying. You're like, all right, I'm out of here.
Yeah. I was. There were two things that happened.
A little bit closer to the mic.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure. There were two things that happened that I could remember that were like positive things for me in North Jersey. One, I just happened to be part of this high school football team that, you know, we went to the state championships. We won almost all, except that we lost the last game, but that was like the only thing positive in my life was that. And then after that, I got into, I always wanted to get into music. I somehow learned how to play the bass, you know, and I got into bands in the early 80s.
Did you teach yourself, or you were like taking, like, what was the story?
I took a couple of different tours. It was like this Italian wedding guy down the block who gave lessons, you know.
It's very American.
Yeah. I guess that's the path I took, and started with him. Then I met a guy who was like a musical genius. He was around my age. Maybe he was like 7 years older than I was, but a musical genius. Play anything. And I started taking lessons from him, and he asked me to join a band with him, get a band together with him.
No way.
What? Really? I mean, I just felt like I was hanging by a thread.
Yeah, you were like a roadie, like whatever. Hey, I'll just hang around. And he was interested.
Yeah. And then we started this band, and we were like, well, you know, big fish in a little pond. There was really not much else going on. So we drew a crowd, like crowds, you know, from back then.
Where were you playing?
Where?
Yeah, like in bars or like outside?
In bars, yeah.
Nice.
I think we played a college down in Pennsylvania. No, we played a couple colleges, Jersey, Pennsylvania. Played this, you know, we didn't get too far out of there, you know, maybe like New City, New York we played.
Yeah, it's in Rockland County.
Yeah, Rockland County. And then we played some, I think it was Sheepshead Bay. I really wish I would have taken better like notes and stuff of where I was.
Right.
This like whacked out nightclub. It was like 2 stories, packed. And I was
Like near the water, like Emmons, like down there?
It was around there somewhere. And because it was like, how many thousands of years ago was this? So I don't remember exactly where it was. But it was a crazy setup because I was like 22 at the time, 21, 22. And everyone in this place, where there was like hundreds of kids, were like 17 and 18.
No way.
Yeah, it was the most whacked out shit. But everyone, they knew not to get out of hand.
Right.
You know, their uncle was
Yeah, somebody.
watching them.
Yeah, it's funny.
So that's kind of that. And it didn't go that far. Maybe we did some recording in the city, Manhattan. Didn't really write any original shit. But, it tanked after a couple of years, as these things do.
Yeah.
So those were the two, like, positive things happened to me. And then it was time for something else. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was always, like, underemployed, I would kind of just take any gig that was, decent.
Right.
But, all that time I came from my father's side was I'm not going to go into too deep. It was a drinking family.
Right.
So I knew what a highball tasted like before I knew what a highball was.
Right.
Because when we were old enough to stand, they were giving us sips of it.
Sure.
Beer and whatever cocktails they had at the party. We were drinking it. They would give it to us. So, and then I couldn't wait to drink on my own. And then once I was able to get my hands on that, it was off to the races,
Right. So when did you move into the city?
Like 96. I spent a little time in Boston because this kid I played sports with, I was good friends with him other than the sports. He went to Boston University. And then when he graduated, he came back and said what a great town that is to be in a band, to join a band, to be in a band. So that's all I had to hear. I just packed up I had a 67 Impala that I bought for a couple $100. I put my shit in it and took off up there for a few years.
Wow, for a few years?
Yeah, I was up there for a few years.
What was it like?
The music scene was great at the time. It was...
What years was this?
84, 85, 86, something like that.
Okay.
The music scene was really good. A lot of bands, I can't even remember the names of them, but they were getting signed by record companies. You know how like the music scene would move around? Like
Sure.
It would be Seattle and then Athens, Georgia, and, so it was Boston's turn at the time.
Right.
So I'm like, wow, I'm hitting the fucking jackpot.
Right.
But again.
Who were you playing with?
Who?
Yeah.
Just actually some friends of mine from North Jersey went to school up there.
Right.
So we rented a house and we played together and then.
Right. So you didn't go up there and join like a local band, like you brought your guys with you. Okay, cool.
No, they just happened to be there. I wasn't planning. I didn't know anybody. I knew like that one guy, and then so that happened. Trying to think of the succession, and then they all went their separate ways. They graduated and went to live lives, I guess, and then there were just various bands that we put together, and we would play again just play in bars, and try to get ourselves on the college radio stations. And at that point, I was able to like put a song together that was like write my own that was coherent enough.
Right.
And then I would get on commercial radio, college radio, not commercial radio. And again, underemployed, would kind of just take any gig, didn't give a shit about it, hungover, start drinking heavily on a Thursday night, and up until Sunday night.
Right.
All through the weekend. I just was underweight, I was hospitalized a couple times, which was alcohol. I know now to be alcohol related,
Right.
I went to the doctors. They asked me how much I drank. One of my employers sent me to the doctor. Said, you look terrible.
How old were you?
Fucking 24 years old.
Yeah.
How can how can a 24-year-old look bad enough for their employer to send them to the doctor?
Right.
Doctor said, "Yeah, how much do you drink?" He's poking at my liver. Oh, it was like
Like somebody stabbing you. Yeah.
stabbing me or punching me. And how much do you drink? I said, I told him. I was honest. He was like, "Oh yeah, okay." No, that's like didn't say like slow down. He told me, he said, you got to eat more iron.
Yeah.
Have a few more steaks, a few more hamburgers during the week.
That's funny. It was a different time.
Yeah, way different time. So that was the 80s. So again, the drinking escalated. The jobs came and went. I was.
And what kind of jobs? You just like working with your hands? What were you doing?
Yeah, working with my hands. I did a lot of work for electricians and burglar alarms, fire alarms and shit.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was all right, But, they didn't pay shit, and I kind of didn't care, really. I just was going to be, my album was going to break any day now, so why should I care? Why should I show up on time and sober,
Right.
It was it wasn't fair to the people, it wasn't their fault that they were paying, $6 an hour or whatever the hell it was.
Right. Now, what about your friends? Were they like saying anything to you, or were they partying just as hard?
Hard as fucking hell. It was kind of like this punk rock and roll scene. Everybody you knew was in a band.
Right.
And going as hard as they possibly can.
Yeah, but you're also in your early 20s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was right there with them, as much as I could. I was as far as for a guy who drank constantly, I had a really low tolerance for it.
Really?
I would pass out. I wasn't really like a blackout drunk. I was like a pass out drunk.
Right.
In between cars, I actually passed out in the gutter.
Right.
In the gutter, on a stoop, in back of cars, and people's spare rooms when there was a party going on. There was a lot of that, But I would just try to control it. Those were like the trying to control it eras,
Did you know you were out of control or no?
No. I knew I was just having a good time. That's all I perceived of it,
Yeah. So what happens next?
I'm trying to think. I don't want to leave anything really significant out of the story that made me, the dysfunctional relationships with the girls, it just never worked out. I was always trying to be as promiscuous as I possibly could as an ego thing, which, I usually failed at, but I still tried.
Sure.
And again, through another friend that I knew just came back from California. And he says, "Oh, I moved there. It's great. Oh, it's this, it's that," and then painted this big picture for me. And I'm all right. Let's go.
Yeah, you're like, say less.
Yeah,
I'm in.
1980 Ford pickup truck, and just blasted out there.
That's it. Put all your shit in the back, and that's it.
Hefty bags.
Another geographic.
Which I know now to be another geographic.
Right.
So here I am in California, better weather, better food.
Where in Cali are you?
I was in Northern California. I lived in both San Francisco and Marin County.
Oh.
If you know how that's laid out.
Yeah.
I lived in a boatyard in Marin County, working for construction, and the construction owner had a Winnebago there, and I lived in a Winnebago, and I would go out and do the jobs there. So I got, I lost all that, I got in shape. I cut my drinking in half, and I actually, strangely enough, I got a job in a bar. I was a bartender for a couple of years.
Right, but you got quote unquote a fresh start.
Yeah, fresh start.
Right, you're just cleaning the slate. All right, now I'm this guy.
I'm this guy. I felt like Superman.
Right.
I really did.
Yeah.
My strength came back. Actually, because I worked so much, I would take all these shifts from all these people who were.
What kind of bars?
They were like rock and roll kind of bars. One was kind of I think the grunge thing was just starting to happen then, so it was kind of like one of the grunge bars, and the other one was more like a British kind of. It was before craft beer took off.
Yeah.
But a kind of like a 1,000 beer tap kind of British style pub. So between those two places. So I worked all the time, and I had money in my pocket. I mean, big gobs of it, cash.
Right.
I've never seen that before in my life.
Right.
And this is like the greatest thing.
Yeah, you had arrived.
Yeah. So, but with that, I swore to myself I would never drink on the job, you know? And for the, most of the years, I did not. So what happens is your health improves, you know? You get more energy, you get more things done, you know? You could afford more shit, you know?
Are you making better choices, just in general?
Barely, but I'm sure my head cleared a little bit, you know? I got this beautiful blonde girlfriend, you know, like, and shit really, you know, I think I got a part-time job in a motorcycle shop too, so.
Are you playing music out there too, or no?
Yeah, I told myself I had enough of it, you know?
Yeah.
But after a couple of years, I got back into it, and I played, and again, you know, and then a little bit here and there, nothing too serious. People were always asking me to join up and play with them again, you know? So, but then I got in a big fight with the owners, and they were huge, you know, I don't want to point fingers at people, but they were huge alcoholics, you know?
Right.
And, you know, I'm an alcoholic. I got the big ego. I'm not going to let anybody tell me what to do, and so I just say, I'm out of here. I'm done with this shit.
Right.
You know? So I kind of went back to the underemployment routine. Somewhat destitute, you know, started to just put a strain on the relationship with the girl, and we eventually, so things started to dissolve, you know?
Right.
And I still pretty much, you know, I guess I had more time to drink then. So that all started to, you know, resurface.
You kept it at bay by being busy.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. Yeah, and I hear that's a trait that we have is we occupy ourselves
Sure.
to like the 10th degree, and it probably keeps it at a distance. So without that, you know, filter, it's, you know, it's off to the races again.
Sure.
And yeah, you know, riding a motorcycle all year round, drunk, broke my collarbone, riding around in the rain and kicking a cab, and the cab was chasing me around, and I hit some trolley tracks, wiped out, boom, broke my collarbone. I think what other catastrophes, you know, here and there. And again, you know, the old patterns seem to just resurface. The promiscuity, you know, underemployment, maybe, you know, the health thing, I really didn't let myself go that bad. I did like a full year or so of a Korean jiu-jitsu, which was called Hapkido, those 3 syllables. I don't know if anyone heard that. But I was able to stick with that, you know? Oh, yeah, so what happened is from there, I got into the film business.
Right.
Remember when I was bartending, these 2 guys would come in every now and again, they would come in. They would spend tons of money. They were real, like, personable. We got along good. They would bring me stuff from these trips they went on, and we got to be, you know, friends. And they told me they were in the film business. So like they would do TV commercials and shit. And after I left the bartending, I asked them for work. I said, "You got any?" And then he put me to work, and I started working in these. I don't know if people still make music videos, but that's what majority of it was. It was TV commercials and music videos.
What were you doing?
I was just doing an art department, and I think I worked in a grip house, which was where the trucks you load the trucks with all the lighting and electric stuff.
Right.
And I did that for a couple of years out there.
How long were you in California total?
Like almost 6 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah, I know. I don't know when to leave. I don't know when to give up. I just kind of like keep banging my head against the wall, you know, expecting the wall to break.
Right.
Until I break.
Yeah.
You know?
That's how we are.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
Actually, there was a connection between New York and where I was, and I knew a couple of guys from earlier in my life who were in the same business in New York.
Right.
So I got in touch with them. I'm saying, and it was things were slow out in California, because like if you were like me, and I was in Northern California, San Francisco, it was either, at the time, it was either like New York or LA
Right.
for the majority of the work. So I said, let me make the call. I called the guys in New York. They said, come on out. We'll put you to work. I flew back and forth a couple times for work, and I was making great money. And I just realized that, yeah, it's time to come back. I miss New York. Whatever family I had left here. And I'm like, yeah, it was just like one of those defining moments where like it was like a light going on.
Right.
I don't know what it was, But yeah, so I made the move back.
Yeah.
And
Where did you land?
in the East Village,
Nice.
13th Street between A and B, a converted storefront, 2 storefronts with the basements. And I had 3 roommates, and we worked together. One was
So wait, it was 2 storefronts.
yeah,
And there was 2 basements or 1 basement?
2 basements during the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
And we lived in there and worked out of there because like some part of it was like where we stored all the tools and the flats and everything and all the supplies for the jobs,
Right. Yeah, because you were still in the TV stuff. So what were you doing there in New York? Like you were just working with studios, or what were you doing?
It was the same. It was non-union TV commercials and music videos.
Right.
I think I got one feature film for a short time then. But I was living there, and it was just like full on, like,
Caligula.
yeah, it really was. It was like the floodgates were open,
Sure.
It was
And what
hammered.
years was this?
This was 90, I think I started flying back and forth in 95, and I got an apartment by 96.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was in high school during that time.
Yeah.
And I used to go to, we used to run down to like Bleecker Bob's or Generation Records to buy hardcore show tickets, because you would need to go to those the only places that like sold them.
No online.
And there was no nothing. And if you weren't, and at that time, it was like madness. That's when like I remember, like Tompkins Square Park was really crazy town.
Yeah.
It was like Junkie City, and there were junkies all over Union Square, and I used to go to shows all the
St.
time at
Mark's.
like, St. Mark's. I used to go to shows like Irving Plaza, Roseland, Roxy on 18th Street. And it was like mayhem down there. And the guys that were in like the Lower East Side, they were like fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And then I would never make it to like CB's on Sunday. CB's had a Sunday matinee where it would be like fucking nuts, like metalhead, skinhead, crazy town. And all these DMS guys would go there, and I would fucking no. I would never even make it because I would be so whacked from like hanging out for like 3 days before that. I would never make it. But there was, you go there now, you can't even afford a studio.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous.
No.
How long did you stay down there?
I hung on there for a long time. I think I almost did like 18 years in that neighborhood.
Wow.
In a couple of 3 different places.
Right.
And
how was the work progressing?
it went up and down. It was hot and cold, So
Right.
again, I found myself without any money.
Right. So it's like feast and famine. Like you're very busy for a while and you're maintaining your lifestyle, drinking, partying, whatever. But
Right.
then when the work goes away,
Good time Charlie left town,
yeah. So how did you start to stabilize that portion of your life?
I didn't.
Right.
It was just again I worked in a motorcycle shop, part time.
Fixing bikes?
Yeah, doing like the repair stuff. The customization came later. I did a little bit, but it was mostly service and repair, which was like great. It was 4-5 blocks from my house where I lived, and there was a little community of people who rode bikes and hang out and went to shows and drank and were in bands.
Right.
So what better life can you ask for?
Right.
So this whole whirlwind of activity is going on down there at the time. You know, so, rock and rollers, photographers, artists, you go to art opening or, photo, somebody you knew was a photo thing, and, go see a bunch of bands. It was incredible. Again, I wouldn't make some of them.
Right.
Like I would work in I remember working in the motorcycle shop, going to the bar for a happy hour to see some friends, make all these plans for going out that night, and I would get just housed, and then go home and pass out. And then wake up the next day or in the middle of the night like, oh, what happened? I'm supposed to make, all these plans. So.
Right. Yeah, no, alcohol took over my life, at the same time. But I was a teenager. I was just barely getting out of high school then. And even before then, I would be like, oh my God, I can't wait. We're going to go see the Cro-Mags. Yeah. And I would never make it.
Never make it.
I'd be like, they'd be on their way back. And they'd be like, bro,
Yeah.
I'd be like, Jesus. Yeah. But that in my mind, it's not even really a consequence. Just like this is just like life.
Right.
Yeah,
oh, God damn. All right, I'll get them next time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's going on next?
Kind of double dipping with the girlfriends.
Right.
Eating at an outdoor restaurant with a girl, sweating, waiting for the other one to walk down the block.
Yeah.
And that carried on for a couple of years. That was like insanity. I don't know what I was doing, what I was thinking. So that was going on. Again, just the ups and downs. Never occurred to me till years later that my alcoholism was part of the problem of me going from having like a decent handful of money to being near destitute.
Right.
The next week. And that cycle repeating itself over and over.
Right, because now you're getting older.
Yeah, I'm old. How old am I then?
You got to be in your 30s at minimum.
Yeah, late 30s.
Right.
All right? And so this was kind of what life was. I'm on East 13th Street. Again, I hate to, take anybody else's inventory, but one guy's strung out on heroin. The other guy's alcoholic, like me, and lived in a basement, no windows, rats living under the floor, rats dying under the floor.
Jesus.
To the point where I would try to cut up the floorboards to find them, to throw them out.
Yeah, because they smell.
Telling me they smell. So
yeah.
that was my kingdom.
Right. So when did you, how did you start to get help?
Through very strange circumstances.
Like if the story's not strange enough.
Yeah, right. Please bear with me. Stay tuned. One of the two girls I was double dipping with was in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
Also, the crew of guys from the film work, they were in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Really?
Like 5 of them.
Wow. And they're watching you? None of them are like poking the bear? Like this? They're not dropping hints or anything?
Not really. They kind of left me alone. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe like the other girl that I was double dipping with, when I finally told her that I'm going to stop drinking, that I had a problem, she goes, I never knew.
Oh, yeah.
I lived with this girl for like 2 years and dated her for like 5 or 6. She was like, I didn't know you were that bad.
Wow.
Maybe that was just her perception, but hey, I knew I was.
Right. So, yeah. So when did the idea come to you? Like, okay.
Yeah. All right. Here it is. So maybe the seed has been planted. I'm pretty sure it was. There was one, I think it was kind of like Memorial Day weekend. And this one girl had a sister in Pennsylvania who was going to have this party and invited us all, a bunch of us from the Lower East Side. And I remember riding my bike out there, a bunch of other guys on their bikes, crushed, falling off their bikes. And, they set up these tents in this girl's yard and everything. And so it was on. It was like one of those drinking orgies.
The bell had rung.
Yeah. It was, for a couple, 3 days. I don't remember how many days I was out there. But then again, just leading up to that, I would be walking around the village, not knowing where my next dime was coming from. you know, in my late 30s, I'm like, you know, I can't go on like that. What am I doing here? What am I trying to accomplish? You know,
How are
no
you-
answers. I had
How
no
are you
answers.
physically at that point?
I was hanging in there. You know, I wasn't like going to the hospital anymore. Or, you know, maybe I dumped my bike a couple times drunk. I know I did for a fact, but I didn't get severely like hospitalized. I was lucky. I always lucked out. You know?
Right.
But I was in pretty decent shape. I don't remember going to a gym. I would sporadically go to some judo dojo for a little while and quit. You know, that was kind of my
Yeah.
routine. You know, leading up to that, the questions started to come up. You know, what am I doing? Where's this going to end, kind of thing. And then this party came up, and we're out there, and then we rode our bikes into the woods somewhere and started a fire. And I remember, like, I had this, like, tall boy in my hand, and I'm just, like, dozing off next to this fire, and the thought came to me, like, oh, my God, I was doing this when I was 17 years old. You know, and I'm like, this is, it was a real eye-opener to even ask myself that question or make that observation.
Moment of clarity.
Yeah, it was a moment of clarity in a moment where, you know, I was near unconscious.
Right.
Okay? So I had this moment of clarity. So I'm dozing off. So we all went back, and everyone was just falling out all over the lawn. I don't know where I slept, in a tent or on a sofa or something. I woke up crazy early in the morning. I woke up, it's this beautiful day, and I'm walking through all these tents, and people are in their underwear and just laying all over the place. And I said, all right, let me go get a coffee or something. And I knew there was a diner, maybe like, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile down this country road. And I was walking down to this diner, and suddenly tears just started rolling down my eyes. And I couldn't explain it. And I just said, I can't live like this anymore. And right then was the start of it, you know? And I went to the diner, went back. And when I got back to New York, I think I called a buddy of mine from the film business who moved back to California, who was in AA. And I said, listen, what's the story? I'm done. You know, and he was like, congratulations. Here's what you got to do if you're interested. And he told me, you know, how to go about it. And I just started letting people who were important in my life at the time know what was going on. I went to the guy who hired me in the film business. I told him I wasn't going to drink anymore. And he goes, first thing he said to me, he goes, what are you going to do with the money? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? What money? He goes, all the money you're going to save from not spending it on alcohol. Never occurred to me. Never in a million. I always thought it was society's fault, my bad luck, you know.
You have that chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was never me and my,
It was never
My
me.
behavior.
I was the same way.
yeah.
I still get like that sometimes.
All right, well, of course, we all do.
Yeah.
So
So you start letting people know.
I started letting people
How did
know.
you feel? Did you feel like some relief? Like what
Yeah, extreme. I knew the game was up. So, you know, maybe it could have been like a boxer or something in a ring and just like he's getting his ass beat and he's, you know, throws in the towel. You know, maybe that's that kind of relief. Like, you know, I'm going to stop getting my head punched in.
Well, sometimes the manager has to save the fighter from himself.
Yeah. That's another thing, yeah.
Thank God that didn't happen for you, where you had the wherewithal to be like, I'm just going to take a knee,
Yeah.
and that's
Exactly
it.
what
Because
happened.
a lot of us, we don't make it because we're too strong for our own fucking good.
For one reason or another. Yeah.
What makes me laugh is that like there's so much recovery in that neighborhood that it was under my nose when I was running around there with my friends from upstate, and like I'm like, geez, 12th Street Workshop.
12th Street,
Oh,
a lot of time in there. Counted a lot of days in there.
that's such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
You know, to me that's like the Greenwood of like Manhattan. Like you go
think
in
so.
there and it's like you just feel at home. It's like the mothership. So, how did you feel when you first started going to meetings and just kind of like taking advice? Finally, they're like, okay, I did 3 geographics, dumped, like, you're very cavalier about dumping your bike. Meanwhile, you could have really been hurt or killed fucking doing it.
Easily.
You know what I'm saying? Or all this other stuff. So now somebody's, the thing about recovery is that you get all of this wisdom from the most unlikely people on earth, Yeah. So what was that like for you when you first came in?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that because I'm still taking my own advice at this point in time. The AA girlfriend says, well, I know you can start going to meetings. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm okay. All right. So I'm on I stopped drinking, but I do maintain with the NA beers.
Right.
Okay, that you can still buy in the bodega with a couple of Subway tokens.
Right.
Anybody my age knows you can spend Subway tokens in a bodega to get, a 40 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I was doing drinking the NA beers, as a maintenance. I didn't know what the hell. I started meeting more people in the program, and I might have mentioned that, I was just drinking a few NA beers. I go, yeah, that's all right. I said, why? What's the matter? I goes, it's a personal thing for me. I just think NA beers are for alcohol, or for alcoholics or people who don't realize they're alcoholics.
Right.
So that was a little bit of an eye-opener there. So I'm on my own program.
Explain to everybody that doesn't know what an NA beer is.
Oh, I don't know if they still sell. I know they sell like Heineken Zero, which is supposed to have like zero alcohol in it. God knows. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But
these are like non-alcoholic
It
beers.
says non-alcoholic beer, but it was like 0.03%.
Right.
And you drink 6 or 7 of those things, and you can get like goofy. I mean, I did.
Yeah.
So that's what I drank.
That's so funny.
Right?
Yeah, I remember my mom wanted to buy them for me once when I first got sober. Yeah, she was like, because, I came from a family of drinkers too, that they never gave a shit, whatever. He's like, oh, well, we can buy these, I forgot the name of the brand, but they were famous non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah, there were a couple of them.
Yeah, and I was like, no, thank you. I didn't really like the taste of beer. Like, I'm drinking it to get, obliterated. Like, I'm not, like, if I thought about it now, think about it right now. If it was non-alcoholic, like, how many warm beers you drank in your life?
Oh.
Fucking
You want to know?
tens of dozens.
Let me tell you a quick story about warm beers. I was at a Harley, like a swap meet in Connecticut in the 80s. And it was a Sunday or something. They didn't sell beer in Connecticut.
Right.
But it was a swap meet, so there was a guy there with these old cans of Harley Davidson beer, which I bought for like $5 for one can.
Jesus.
Thing's probably sitting there for like,
I never even heard of it.
Yeah, it came out for a little while. I don't know when. The thing could have been sitting there for like 8 years, and I drank it. So that's the kind of give you an idea.
That's how desperate we are. So I don't want NA beers the same way I don't want a warm beer.
Right.
Like, if it's not going to whack me, I'm not in. So you were drinking those for a while, and then what? Somebody said, hey, maybe you should consider not doing that?
Yeah, but I didn't listen. So I think I kept going for a while there. One other little, like I say, the catastrophes were always, maybe they were less frequent. I remember I was going down to my friend's 40th birthday party on the Jersey Shore. And I'm riding down the Garden State Parkway, and I get off this exit, and, now I think back. I'm still going a little too fast because, I'm in highway mode in my mind.
Right.
So instead of dropping from 60 miles an hour to, 30 miles an hour, maybe 45, 50. And I get off the exit, I'm on the side street, and I see this car. It's like this big tank, like a big Chrysler or something, waving around in front of me. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? So I'm going to pass him. So I went faster. And then as I'm coming up on him, he locks the brakes up for no apparent reason whatsoever, like in the middle of nowhere. And I said, I'm going to hit him. I just hauled in on the brakes, and I was just going too fast to stop. rear-ended him, flipped over. I remember like I was airborne. And it came down, landed on my back, and I couldn't move. I was like, there was like some temporary paralysis because I tried to get up and I couldn't get up. So eventually, no, everything came back. I went back. And a friend of mine was coming down to the party. I think we had beepers back then or some bullshit.
Yeah.
And
This was sober?
yeah, well, NA sober.
Yeah.
I mean, non-alcoholic beer sober.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was coming down the highway at the time, and I got it. I left a message on him. I don't know if we had flip phones or whatever the hell it was, but he came down with he had a truck, pickup truck, so we threw it in the back. Instead of going to the hospital, went to the party, and I was in a lot of pain, you know?
Oh, my God.
And, you know, should have went to the hospital, but I didn't. So I asked some girls that was there for like aspirin, and she had like Motrin or something like that. And I took like a handful of them, and I knocked it back with a whiskey, like a little shot of whiskey, and that was the last time I ever touched anything. But that was during the 3.5 years of my own program. You know?
Right.
And so again, you know,
No meetings, just dry?
just dry. Yeah, now I realize what a dry drunk was, you know?
Right.
I started hearing that term, dry drunk, you know, from either the girl I was dating or maybe some of the guys.
Yeah, the people that know that you're like
Yeah.
trying to get, you know.
They weren't calling me that directly.
Right, but in
they told me.
recovery, they say, all right, there are people who are in the halls and people who are in the rooms.
Yeah.
Right? So
Right.
the guys that they already know, they're like, dude, that's what you're doing? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
You know, but at least you're close enough. I mean,
I'm
you're
getting
not.
close, yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Not oblivious.
Right. And then
know?
eventually the moth comes to the flame.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
eventually. Through whatever avenue.
However it works.
It
So you do
works.
that for 3 years, and then you're like, all right, listen,
Yeah.
finally.
And you know what it came down to? Was anxiety and depression. That
Untreated alcoholism.
There's another accurate term for it.
Right.
What I've been trying to drown.
Yeah, you kept it at bay.
Yeah, all these years I was trying to drown what alcohol started bubbling to the surface. There was like incapacitating depression and alcoholism. I mean, depression and anxiety.
Right.
All right? So I had this to deal with. I was carrying this around with me. But what did happen, two things that did happen on the positive side, was I got in to the union job, which I still have to this day. In the
Right.
same union. Not the same job, but I'm still in the same labor union. I got into that. Another thing is a friend of mine I grew up was a New York City cop. And I don't know if it's still that way now, but New York City cops, they have to have a residence in Manhattan.
Right.
Or wherever they're working.
Yeah, they have to live in the city.
They have to live in the city.
In the 5 boroughs, yeah.
Yeah.
I think firemen too.
Okay. So they have to have an address. So a friend of mine has an address there in the village, blocking away from the basement apartment where I was living. He goes, listen, I'm not at this place anymore. I'm buying like this other real estate here and there, and I'm going to be living in there. I need somebody to stay there. It was great. I had my own apartment.
Wow.
Rent stabilized apartment. Like dropped in my lap.
And a union job.
And a union job.
And sobriety.
Well, to my version at that time. But, you know, and then I kind of reassessed things. I got some outside help because now I have insurance. I never had insurance before, really, so I can go see a therapist and start trying to unravel this shit.
Sure.
So, you know, slowly things started to clarify a little bit. And, you know, I started to, you know, reassess the situation. I said, you know what? Not drinking was an experiment. I said, look, all these guys seem to be doing okay without this alcohol. Let me try this. Let me just try it, you know, just as an experiment.
Right.
And then finally got to the point where, well, maybe I'll try this AA as an experiment.
Well, because here's the thing. Like, not drinking gave you a lot of results.
Yeah.
Right? But those were like external things. Mm-hmm. Like now you could be in the apartment, you could have whatever bike. What the guy says, what are you going to do with all the money?
All the money, yeah.
Right? Now you're in a union, you have all this stuff, but like you realize you're surrendering to that, like, this is all like external,
Right.
but inside, I hate this life and I
Right.
hate myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I had to say it. It was a lot. It was just a lot of pain that brought me into the rooms.
Right.
I don't recommend this path to
Yeah.
anyone, but this is just what
You
happened.
did a couple of jug handles.
Oh, please.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, like
That's
running around in
funny.
circles.
So then what happens? You start coming into rooms and then you start taking suggestions.
Yeah, slowly. And again, people showing up from out of the blue. I was taking music lessons again. I wanted to get interested in music again, and my instructor was in the rooms, and I
Wow.
told him, "Say, I'm done. I want to get some. I want to get in the program." Is what I told him. He goes, 2 blocks from here. This was in Williamsburg when I first started to get into popular.
Yeah.
We were doing the lessons out there. He goes, 2 blocks from here. There's an AA meeting.
Wow.
That was my first meeting.
Yeah.
And
What
it's
year is this?
Like 2002.
I remember this was like around the time when Williamsburg was like really turning,
Yeah.
because I remember like in the late 90s, early 2000s, I remember reading like in the newspaper that all the Hasidic Jews were so angry because all the hipsters and the artists were moving from the East Village. They were just going into Williamsburg, and they were losing their minds.
Yeah.
Like,
It must have been livid.
yeah, and it would be like on the New York Post or the Daily News that, like, because they had that whole neighborhood,
Yeah.
and it was super affordable, and it was like, and it was safe. It was just like it was another place for like creative people to be.
Yeah, it really was for that short period of time before all the money and
Oh yeah, because then that's what happens. And then they moved to
followed it.
Bushwick, and then whatever.
on and on.
Yeah, it's crazy. Eventually, we're all going to be in the water.
Yeah,
is
who
what
knows?
is
Yeah.
what the deal is. So you start going to this meeting. What are you thinking?
I'm still a little, confused, misdirected. I think I came late to the meeting, so I buzzed back into the village, and I found another meeting. And from there, people were starting to give me their phone numbers, which I didn't get at the time.
Right.
I raised my hand. I said I was an alcoholic. I said I'm a newcomer. The offers of telephone numbers started to come in, and I was like, maybe not.
I was the same way. I'd say, like, look, I did my job. I showed up, I sat down, I put my hand up, and I drank this shitty coffee. Like, and there were people who would come, they'd want to talk to me. I'm like, I don't know about all of that others. I'm just doing this right now, which oddly enough is good enough. Just because eventually you get all of
absorb some of it,
but eventually you become comfortable with other people, and but just to get your ass into a meeting is everything,
Yeah, so it was really fragmented, the information that was coming in for me. But the thing is, I stuck with it. And again, 12th Street Workshop was a few steps away.
Right.
And it was all like this external circumstances kind of thing. The schedule that I had with work coincided with the meetings and my 90 and 90, which, again, I had no sponsor. I'm just hearing these things.
Right.
I said, maybe that's a good idea. So I did my 90 and 90. I met a lot of people who I didn't know. Like you said, there was this hotbed of sobriety and sober people, bikers and artists and musicians.
Sure.
They're all in a room. So, I'm like, wow, you? I thought you were, going to go to jail or, whatever. So, that can keep you interested,
Of course, because then you know that you're not alone.
Not alone, yeah. And, you forge these alliances and friendships and stuff. So, I hung in there, man. I just did my meetings and read as much as I could. Maybe I might have spoke or something now and again, but it wasn't really too deep. I was really searching for a sponsor, because the anxiety and depression was still there,
Right.
to a large extent. And I figured, well, if I do these 12 steps, that'll make that all go away. So I was on a real hunt for the sponsor,
Right.
which I had 5 before the one took me through the steps, all the 12 steps.
Right.
So it was a battle. It was not my early years in the program. They weren't pretty. They weren't easy. You know, it wasn't like this just big like shining gate that opened and, you know, everything was gorgeous. It was tough. It was not easy, man. But
You had to earn it.
yeah, I guess, you know. So, you know, I just the only thing I knew how to do was put the time in, you know, and you know, I sought out these sponsorship, and you know, for one reason or another, they didn't answer the calls. They weren't ready. Some of them weren't ready to accept sponsees for whatever reason. I don't blame them. Two of them moved away. A couple of them went out. They
Yeah.
picked up again.
That's wild when you see that.
Yeah.
For the first time, because when you come in, you think everybody's going to stay.
Yeah, you think, oh, we're on this journey together.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the whole
and
nine
no
yards.
way.
Yeah.
There are people like, they go out, they don't come back, or you find out that they pass away. You start going to a lot of funerals, all this other stuff. And then, you know, you forget that, like, they're humans. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want a
It's easy.
sponsor, but I got a human that maybe he doesn't answer the phone all the time, like whatever. But in the beginning, it's very important that you were persistent,
Yeah.
because then eventually you found the right guy.
And it took me through the whole steps. Brooklyn guy.
Yeah,
You know, but by that time, I was making the Brooklyn meetings.
yeah,
I wanted to branch out a little more. I had friends in Brooklyn, you know, Park Slope, Windsor Terrace area, and I just happened to, you know, hitch a ride. There you go, we're going to a meeting.
yeah.
I'm like, great. You know, it was great crowds. People were like, you know, entertaining, right?
Right.
And they seemed to have a recovery. They seemed to have something going on, you
Right.
know? So that was attractive to me. I would get out of, you know, my kind of getting into a rut a little bit, and you know, still looking for a sponsor. So that's how that whole Brooklyn thing came in. So I'm going meetings between Brooklyn, maybe some in Midtown where I was working, and you know, down in Park Slope, Williamsburg, Greenpoint, and of course the Village. So that was my kind of circuit that I ran around in.
Right. And you did that for a while.
Yeah, a long time. That's
Yeah.
how I met you guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know.
And then at the same, so then you were working, doing the studio stuff, and then you got back into the bikes, fixing bikes and shit, right?
Yeah.
How did that come into your...
Through two avenues. One, I was working in a little shop in the Village, and I met this character
Yeah,
who went on to be kind of a famous motorcycle builder. He
Right.
lived like a few blocks away. He would drop in all the time. We got to know each other. He asked me to help him out with a couple of, you know, I was just like cleaning up parts and stuff like that, you know, like doing the grunt work for him now and again. And we got to be friends. He shows up in the rooms at 12th Street Workshop,
yeah,
you know? So that's how I got involved in the bikes again. And through the rooms and through meeting him on the outside world.
right. But also being sober,
yeah.
like being like you're able to now show up
Yeah, exactly.
and not be a liability, and that took you where it took you.
Yeah, to the next level. And that particular place took off to like, you know, other work. I didn't sign on for that kind of thing, but it was like television and, you know, tours around the country, and which I went on a couple of those, and, you know, magazines and this and that. So,
What was that like for you to experience that as like, you know, in one portion of your life, you're like passed out at a lake having this
Yeah.
moment of clarity, like this can never be my life. These guys are in their 40s or probably almost pushing 50. This fucking chick, like, I'm over this. I was doing this at 17.
Yeah.
And then you get clean, you get sober, you're a personable guy. Now you're showing up everywhere. And then all of a sudden this other life shows up that's like infamous
Yeah.
in that way, where you're just like, and all it was you not drinking because you're the same guy.
I guess that's it. I never really, maybe I just don't perceive or give myself credit for it or make those comparisons. But at the time, it was like, wow, this is really weird. I was kind of here to put my bike together, like, as I'm helping them.
Right.
That was my motivation. I was like, well, these guys offered to help me put this bike together that I was building. I'll help them out. I was a good metal worker. I was welding and stuff for them.
Yeah,
And
like you didn't have any like motive.
That was, I just had that one motive.
Yeah,
And
no, it's just like it's community. I'm gonna do this, you're gonna do that.
Right.
We're high five. Hey, this guy's in the meetings now, and
Exactly.
like, yeah, it wasn't.
That
And
was
then,
my only focus. And the next thing I know, it was like blew up. It was pretty interesting to watch. It was great fun. I was really happy for the guys involved and watching his progression, all his hard work over the years, all the lumps he took,
right,
and come out on top. That was pretty inspiring.
right.
So that kind of helped my recovery, in a roundabout way.
Sure,
too,
because you're seeing that, like, it can be done.
Yeah.
Like whatever greatness, air quotes, is for you, it doesn't matter. It's like, dude, the greatness could be like, I'm gonna be a freaking Tai Chi master,
Yeah.
or I'm gonna be building bikes on television and whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can do whatever you want. And the thing is that
Get to
like,
see it,
yeah, and where I struggle is that I know that about myself, because I have also evolved similar to you, where like, so when I hear people surrender to like mediocrity and like have like these excuses, I get like angry sometimes. Like, I mean, I have my kids or whatever, but like just people in general, like listen, you can have it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can be, where we were and like there's nothing stopping you, and it is whatever it is for you. And that's like the beautiful thing, because this guy was probably the same way. Like, hey, look, this guy's pretty good at fixing bikes and he can weld some stuff, and then maybe he'll help us fabricate some shit. And then, the thing took on a life of its own.
Yeah, it really did.
And he had a trustworthy guy that was not going to be showing up, 11 beers fucking deep,
Yeah. Causing drama.
right.
Yeah.
And really upsetting his apple cart.
Yeah.
If you can imagine, if you were in his shoes, would you have hired yourself if you were drinking?
Yeah,
right.
Probably not. Yeah.
Exactly. So like it's a testament to you. So then you went from the motorcycles, and then how did you get into the cars?
I kind of just, again, stumbled into that one. I always wanted a car, an old hot rod, like 50s kind of thing. But again, I never had really the wherewithal to do that. I didn't grow up with it. Whatever opportunities I had to learn, I didn't take seriously, or I just ignored, or I was on a tear. I was on I was really on a downward spiral. So a lot of those opportunities missed.
Yeah, they came and went.
I was going to hell in a handbasket. So
Right.
I didn't grow up with it, and it was always something I was gonna, in the back of my mind, I was gonna do. And again, through the motorcycles, I had some friends down in Philly that I visited them, and one of them showed me a car he drove for a little while, parked it on his father's farm, and he says, I want to get rid of this. You want to look at it? I looked at it. It was $500. So, and that was the car that when
we met you, yeah.
Yeah, after we got it all fixed up.
Tell them what kind of car it was.
It was a 49 Chrysler Windsor coupe. It was a two-door. It was still a pretty massive car, but they call it a coupe for the time. And V8 Chevy motor in it, and it had, put disc brakes in it, automatic transmission.
No AC.
No AC. Big, windows. You roll down the windows and you hit the gas. That was it. And that car ran great. It ran everywhere, and I had that for a few years. I think I might have had that thing for like 8 years or something. But again, I didn't really have a decent place to keep it, and the weather got at it, and I didn't have a place to repair the rusted spots on it, and it just basically started to rot out from underneath me.
Right.
And it broke my heart, but I had to get rid of it.
Right.
So that's how I got into the cars, and from, you meet more of the car guys and a lot of the, crossover bike car guys, and, that whole scene. So that was just another, way, I know it's still like materialistic, but again, it's another a comparison for like, maybe having a bus pass, or barely being able to afford that to, having something you're proud of that you built up yourself.
Right.
There's the difference.
Yeah. And then that you're known for this kind of work. Like you
Yeah.
can do custom fabrication stuff, and like, you were digging for dead rats in a basement.
I was. It literally was.
Yeah.
So.
And then this was just, this life was not even a thought in that space.
Yeah. It was another fantasy.
Yeah. Where you're just like, yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah.
I could never, but it's the fact that, that you stayed clean and you stayed sober, and then you kept going. So what's your life like now?
My life is pretty, again, I'm always the last person to give myself credit, but things are life's pretty much the bomb right now. Like 6 years ago, I got into this, I was working for, I was kind of like the side man or fill-in guy at this TV show, and I'm working there, and it's pretty steady enough to make, decent living. And we had a special effects guy on staff. He said he was retiring and no one wants the job. I said, I'll take it. Without thinking about it. I just said, I'll take it, put my hand up, I said, I'll take it.
Why not?
Why not? I'm like, oh my God, what did I just say? So he walked me through the steps. I'm the liaison with the fire department. They give you a test. You got to go down to, where the hell is that in downtown Brooklyn?
Or Metrotech?
Metrotech.
Yeah,
Take
yeah.
a test. I was so nervous, Jared, let me tell you. First of all, I don't retain information at all, like kind of written information or anything like that.
Right.
So here I am, waking up in the morning, reading the material. Going to bed at night, reading the material. Writing down flashcards, so I'm taking them on the subway with me.
Right, because you're still working.
And
right?
Yeah, I'm still working.
Yeah.
So in order for me to retain any information and be tested on it, I got to study up to the second that test goes off.
Right, and you're not a 28-year-old kid.
Yeah, who knows where half of my brain cells wound up. So here I am, like a maniac, studying away on this stuff. And I went in there. They were all really cool with me. They were really like personable, gentlemen and ladies, treating me with a lot of respect. Now it's time to go down to the computer and take the test. Multiple choice, maybe 50, 60 questions. Got them all right.
Wow.
And I got this job as a special effects supervisor in a TV show.
Wow.
Been doing that for maybe 6.5 years now.
What have you learned? What have you learned about yourself taking that job
Oh my God.
from then till now?
That, sometimes you gotta, I look at it, maybe I'm being a little too dramatic with this analogy, but there's a Swedish movie, I think it's called Manx Manus, okay?
Okay.
And it's about, it's subtitled in English. It was about this actual guy in World War II, and he was a resistance guy, and then he fought with the British against the Germans, and he got busted up, and he was in the hospital, and he was under guard. The Germans were guarding him, and he had this plan worked out with the nurse who got the resistance fighters to pull a truck up out under the window. He gets up out of bed, dives through the window, and out, and
Wow.
lands on top of the truck. This is really like shit like really happened. That's like, I would probably never do something like that, but it's in my mind. I say to myself, sometimes you just got to get out of the hospital bed and jump out the window.
Right.
And that's what I learned, that I was able to do that, you know, and I hooked this career out of it, you know. I never finished the 10th grade,
Right.
you know, and here I am. I'm like making like top dollar. I was able to buy my apartment, you know. The bank owns it probably till I die, but
It's okay.
you know.
Yeah, but the truth is that, you know, I talk about this all the time, is that, like, you can never just be brave or courageous without the opportunity. Like, you need the opportunity to be brave.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't just walk around like, hey, I'm brave. Like, no,
Yeah,
the opportunity needs to show up. And
Yeah.
then when you find out who you are, and it's a whole different thing. And we were talking about this before we started, where it's like we live life like unadulterated chemically in that way. So where, you know, you could have been like, I'll take 2 shots of whiskey and I'll give it a go. And that may have turned off some of those doubts enough temporarily, if you're not an alcoholic, to just get you to go whatever. But like, no, you felt every one of those little bean size fears. And that's why you get all of that like result, you know, where the people like the gratitude is what you get.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that we always try to focus on is that recovery requires legitimacy, which is something that I ran from my whole life.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
You know, it's like, okay, like I have to do this unadulterated. I have to get up, be the best human that I can be within reason, and go to sleep without picking up or using drugs all day long. And whatever life comes at me, I can't. Like, I can't pick up. If I pick up, or if I pick up drugs or I pick up alcohol, it's over.
Yeah.
That problem, whatever that is going to have babies when I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Because it'll be so crazy. So like, but then you really, you know, you get to find out how, you know, how precious like your time is. You know, like, oh, I don't want to waste my time with this fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like sitting around a bar just drinking and just talking about nothing?
Yeah.
When like we were on our way in here and we were talking about when I hope you don't mind me saying, like when you were working those weekends, you know, putting this guy's cars together,
Yeah.
right? Out there in Jersey, where like, that's like, you know, that's like Stanley Kubrick shit, right?
I don't know. I never really looked at it like that, but
Yeah, this guy's like, you know, he's like Space Odyssey 2000 whatever,
Yeah.
back in the 40s. And that you're even,
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah.
yeah, but that you're even in that gumbo, you know?
Yeah.
Where before it was like,
I was sitting on a bar stool thinking, you know, or weren't thinking anything. Yeah, I was that guy. Like,
yeah, there was nothing.
yeah.
And now you have this full life. And you're about to celebrate. Tell everybody where you're going to celebrate.
Yes, please. If anyone is in the vicinity of Roosevelt Avenue and 65th Street on a Sunday night, and I think it's the 26th, which is the last Sunday of the month, at 7:30 p.m. Yes, it is the 26th. I'll be celebrating 20 years.
What's the name of the group in case people need to look up the address?
I'll do my best to pronounce it because it's in Irish, which I don't speak.
I didn't know Irish had a language.
They have their own language, yeah.
Really? That's funny.
God, I don't even know. Cade Mill Falcha. If you look in, I guess if you could look it up by neighborhood and the night that it's happening, Woodside, you know, Woodside's a neighborhood. It's 7:30 on Sunday night at 26. It would give you the name of the meeting and the exact address.
That's
You know,
awesome.
there's like a Lutheran church, it's actually a storefront church. That's where it's going down. You've been there?
Yeah,
You know,
it's a
like
great time. And how many years?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
It's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up. Thank you for listening. Don't forget, go find us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere. Google, Stitcher, I don't know, all these other like off-brand stuff, iHeartRadio, everywhere. But listen, spiritual experience. We love you guys. We thank you for the support. We're out of here. Peace.
All right. Thank you, Jared.
Okay, everybody, we'd like to thank you for joining us on The Spiritual Experience. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on all podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, Pandora, everywhere. And please find us on Facebook, where you can become part of our family. We'll see you around.